Hey everyone, welcome to church. So good to have you with us today. We are in a very different environment for the first time for Lifespace. We've had a run of Easter and Sunday services, and glad that we've found this place because, I really think that in Lifespace it's the place where we have kind of connection, where we really get to have those more meaningful conversations and look after one another. And so hopefully you're figuring the tech out and everything like that. But what I really would love us to do for Lifespace today to begin with is just have a conversation of how people are going. Some of us might not have connected with each other for a while, and so let's just make sure we take that time and really through the lens of, are you okay? If we're able to have transparent conversations, because I think no more than ever do we need to be making sure that we're caring for one another. It's one of the things that we learn through Acts, is that the believers looked after one another. And so we need to make sure we're doing that. So let's have that conversation of are you okay? What's going on? What's home life look like? Work life? Whatever you're happy to share would be great. And as part of that, I'd love for you to just share stories. We're just hearing some great things about how people are either getting cared for and what that means to them, or either how they're just coming up with these really creative opportunities to look after other people. And I think if we just can share those stories, it really just motivates us to keep on going and keep thinking about what it means to be a follower of Jesus during this time. From there, we're going to go into our Acts series and think about what we talked about last Sunday, which was around Acts chapter 6. And just briefly, if you recall, we're reading this passage where the church has been exploding. Literally thousands of people are being added. And at that point, it was really being led by the 12 apostles. And what we read about in Acts chapter 6 is there's an argument that breaks out, and it's because food is not being distributed equally between some Hebrew people and some Greek people. And the apostles are going, man, we can't spend our time doing this. We've got a calling and purpose here, and we know what we're meant to do, and this is distracting. And so we need to think about who is gifted to deal with that issue. And it all becomes around this idea of organization of ultimately the early church, and structures and roles and all those type of things. And so as we read that, there's a couple of things I'd love for you guys to try and chat about today. The first is that we looked at a concept which is the difference between prescriptive and descriptive writing in the Bible, and just chat about what you think that means for you and your view on that. As I think about it, it's saying there are some things in the Bible that are just a description that an author is writing of something that happened at a point in time, and he's writing to a group of people. But what we can do is go, this is still scripture that we're meant to learn from, so we don't need to do exactly what that says, but we need to think about the principle we can apply to our life. That's very different to things in the Bible that are prescript. In other words, mostly the words of Jesus are prescribed of how we're meant to live. And that's a very different response to when we're reading those things. And I think that becomes very evident in the passage we're talking about. So, first point, prescriptive versus descriptive. The next thing, I'd love for you to talk about this idea of serving, because I think ultimately that's what the organization structured conversation was happening with the apostles, is who's serving, what's your gifting, where do you serve? And as you do that, really thinking about answering that question, where do you serve? And I think answering that across three areas. The first is, where do you serve others in the church? Where do we serve each other? What does that look like? Where are you serving your broader community? So either your neighbours or your workplace or your school or uni or those type of things, how do you serve there? And then finally, how do you serve the church? This is kind of the community and group that we're all part of, and there's needs there as well. And just chat about what that looks like in this season, but also what it looks like when we come out of it. If you recall from Sunday, we did a quick little scenario of crisis mapping. There's a crisis that happens, then we adapt, and then we reboot. So right now we've got to adapt, think about what serving looks like there, and then ultimately we will go back to something that looks a little more normal, and maybe your idea of serving can be different there. So some real awesome conversation points for you to be having today in this kind of unique environment. Just a couple of things to think about. Every Thursday at the moment, we've decided we just want a midweek connection point. So we've got prayer happening at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. So hopefully one of those time slots works for you. And we'd love for you to dial in and be a part of that. Jared and Kylie doing a great job of running the early 6 a.m. slot, and then a few of us there again in the evening at 6 p.m. And then the other thing is we obviously have our online services happening, and it's been really interesting. We've had a lot of just new people join in, and it just got me to think, well, You know, is there someone in your world that probably wouldn't walk into a church, but you could send them a link and say, hey, look, my church is online. If you've ever thought about checking out a little bit of who we are and what we do, maybe now's an interesting opportunity to flick that across, particularly because some people are just searching for other things in life. So I just wanted to kind of get you to think about that, encourage you to maybe try that. Otherwise, I hope you have a great Lifespace today and just really enjoy this time of connection. So missing the chance to hug or shake hands or something. It's maybe that's a thing of the past, who knows, but hopefully not too long before we get to be in each other's presence and hang out and then get into the presence of the Lord together. But anyway, love you guys heaps, missing you lots, and just trust you have a great Lifespace. Bless you.